Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ben Haddon, this is Ben Haddon Golf, and today we have a video that is more focused towards improving your golf game. We're gonna have 4 tips for how to most maximize your practice time. I know a lot of people who practice all the time maybe aren't seeing the improvements that they were hoping for. Maybe you don't really know what you're doing when you go out to practice. Maybe you just throw a bunch of balls down the range, hit a bunch of shots aimlessly, and are wondering why your scores aren't dropping. Well, today we're gonna give you 4 tips to make sure that the hours that you put in on the range are actually going to good use. Hate to take you all away from the video for a second, but this video, not surprisingly, is brought to you by Decade Golf. If you've watched my channel for long enough, you know I can't get through a video without talking about Decade Golf. I love it. I think it's the best course management software on the planet. I think it's the best practice plan management software on the planet. I think it's just incredible all around if you're somebody who wants to get better at golf. So if you want to see what Decade can do for you, click the link in my description, go sign up for Decade, and just see how much you can improve your golf game. Let's get back to the video and 4 tips on how to improve your golf game with Scott Fawcett. For that, we have with us kind of a guru amongst the golf community, Mr. Scott Fawcett, creator of Decade.
Absolutely, good
and
to see you.
For my money, I mean, you guys probably know him as being a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe being a little bit
opinionated.
Opinionated, yes, there we go.
I'll take it. I know where you're going.
Yeah, maybe being a little opinionated, a little brash, but for my money, one of the best minds in the golf community. And today, he's gonna give us his 4 tips on how to really maximize the time you spend out here on the practice facility. We're at PGA Frisco right now, by the way. It's a beautiful practice area. Can't think of a better way to be doing this video.
It's a pretty cool spot, it really is. I mean, it's obviously got Pro V1s and everything, but just the turf, everything about it's amazing, so it's a pretty cool spot.
Cool, so tip number 1, what do we got?
Tip number 1, I mean, it's funny because this is like one of the things I have to argue about, and it drives me crazy, but get really good at doing one thing. You've got to own your stock shot. And so there's been some research from other genres that are pretty poorly applied to golf when they say you've got to change clubs, change targets. You know, we've got to fool the brain into reorganizing these action maps all the time. And I'm like, I understand what you're saying. But also, if you go out on the PGA Tour, you will see every single person with an alignment rod set up, and most of them will have their launch monitor set up. Okay. And almost by definition with that, that means they're hitting at the exact same target over and over and over again. And I don't use tour players as an example just because, like, well, whatever they do has to be right. Like, they do a lot of dumb stuff too. But this one right here, what they're really trying to do is just own a single shot. You see guys like DJ, Brooks, I mean, all these guys just do the same thing over and over and over again. And so the science that shows your brain needs to reorganize these maps, it's, in my opinion, it's a layperson watching the golf swing, and it looks exactly the same every time, but as you and I both know, it is not even close to the same thing every single time, even when you're trying to. So to me, you want to always have an alignment stick, you want to have a club, whatever it is you need down, because the other thing that's really important is training yourself as you move in from behind the ball to moving into the ball like this, and knowing that we're pointing in the correct direction. Golf is one of the few sports, tennis, serve, that you're not actually looking at the target. Football, we're looking at the person we're throwing it to. Basketball, we're typically going to be looking at the hoop. Almost every other sport, you're actually looking at the target in some form or fashion. Golf, we are 100% not, and the one main difference between golf and tennis is every single court is exactly the same. My analogy to this is if you were getting a tennis serve, and out there working on your serve in a parking lot, and then all of a sudden you showed up at a tennis match and they've got lines in a net, you'd be like, what in the world's going on here? Golf, every single hole's different, every single shot's different, but we still need to be in the same orientation to the ball, mainly because if I don't have the ball position in the same spot, so if I move this ball back in my stance unintentionally, that's gonna shift my path further to the right if the ball's further up. And so I did that video with Frankie from Barstool, a couple months ago. Yeah. And it was comical. Like, here's a guy, he's a decent golfer, but every time with the driver, the ball was roughly in about a 6-inch circle. And he's like, well, I towed that one. I'm like, again, maybe the ball just wasn't in the same spot. I guarantee you, I could walk up, and if I actually would love to figure out a way to do this with my driver, and by the time I've worked myself into my start position, I would bet the tees within a 1/2 inch of the exact same spot every single time. And that's just critical. If you think we need to hit the center of this club face, if it's just all over the place, again, face to path is what creates your shape. You just have to have that part. So I'll even acknowledge, let's pretend that all the science is correct. Yeah. You still need to be able to come in here and get yourself in the exact same spot. And I believe that you can only do that through just, rote memorization, whatever you want to call it, just brute force.
So if we're going to simplify this down into a 30-second explanation, you tell me if I'm right or wrong. We really want to adopt block practicing and stop trying to hit different shots every single time on the range. Hit the same shot over and over and over again for 75% of your practice, and then for maybe 25% of your practice, then work on other types of shots.
And knock yourself out flighting shots. Again, I'm also a big proponent of hitting the same shape.
Yeah.
I don't want guys hitting draws and fades and just all over the place, because just owning one shot's hard enough. I do believe you should be able to alter your trajectory, and I do believe you should be able to straighten your shot out. So if I've got a big wind off the left, I cut 100% of my shots. So if I've got a big wind off the left, I'm not going to try to draw it to hold it into it, but I might try to fade it a little bit less than normal. I mean, if it's blowing 20, if it's blowing 10 or 15, I'm just going to send it up there and let the wind do what it does with it.
Sure.
Obviously, if you've got trees involved, well, that's probably more of a recovery shot. So really, once you've got that, I'm not worried about making birdie. Like, let's just don't make double.
Don't make double.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big thing in the decade system. And if you like what Scott has to say here and you want to get some more information from him, maybe improve your game as far as a course management perspective goes, this is just about practice, but when you're on the golf course, I mean, decades, it's really, really good. I've been using it for a couple years now and I love it. So, number 2, what would your second tip be?
Number 2, well, again, it's going to be with the driver. So the main thing that I would actually say that's really important with this is not going brain dead. I think that's what the majority of people who are proponents of random practice aren't really getting, is really what they're doing is saying, don't go brain dead. I'm best friends with Chris Como. He's told me a little bit about how he and Tiger practice. Said Tiger practice is so slow, it's amazing. So what we really want to do is make sure we slow down. When you're just dragging a ball over and just hitting it, and what's funny is the worse you hit it, you kind of start getting frustrated.
Yep.
The faster you start hitting, because you just want to hit one solid. And 100%. So you just start, that's actually the time to slow down. Take a break, dude. Get some water, take your glove off, like walk around because you're getting pissed off. Take a break. So that would be my main thing, is definitely, I don't really care how you practice, but practice with focus. And if you're not focused, figure out how to get focused.
Okay, so tip number 2 would be slow down, get focused.
Absolutely.
Do you have any, I think I know where you're going with this, but do you have any specific tips on how to increase your ability to focus?
Well, that's a much longer conversation, but I'm a big proponent of meditation. I do believe that was Tiger's superpower. He's talked about meditating basically since the day he could walk. And I do believe that being able to put yourself in a situation where there's chaos going around and just quiet your mind. I mean, again, not that we're gonna have a meditation discussion here, but it's not about having no thoughts. It's just recognizing those ruminating, recurring thoughts before they spiral out of control. And Sam Harris has an app called Waking Up that I think does the best job of explaining what you're trying to do, and that is, I've worked with 50 guys on the PGA Tour, and that is 100% where I send every single one of them. Is learning how to, again, recognize your brain before it spirals out of control. Be like, that's a weird thought. Let's either take some deep breaths, let's move on, whatever it is you got to do.
Sure. Okay. So tip number 1, do the same thing over and over again. But stay, and then tip number 2 is stay focused.
Stay focused. Okay, absolutely.
So tip number 3.
Tip number 3 in practice. I mean, again, like I was saying earlier, I went and worked with Derek Dominski, who on social media is Mr. Golf Better Tucson, and I've never had a great short game. I've never had a bad short game. And honestly, I was pretty happy when I went to him. He's like, actually, your motion's pretty good. I don't have a problem with that. Hit me a shot that carries 7 yards. And I was like, I don't really have a reference point for that. Can you show me like a hole? He's like, no. He's like, that's probably one of your bigger problems. You need to have a shot that carries 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15 yards. He's like, those numbers are just so recurring. And I don't know if it's interesting because I've hit so many great chip shots since that day. And I do believe it takes a little bit of experience to be able to just walk up to a chip and I can see the spot I need to land it for it to get to the hole. And really what we've done by doing that is, instead of this being a 50-foot chip, I've now made it a 15-foot chip, because if I can guess, if I can hit my spot correctly, know where I need to land it, and then it just work, that's half the battle. So what I've been doing with my short game, and honestly, I really can't describe to you the quality of chips I've been hitting, is I'll go out and I've got actually in my car these just yellow Nike discs. And I put them every 5 yards, so then I know 5, 7.5, 10, 12.5 just by going in the middles. And then I simply know that if for me to take my 5-yard shot, it's essentially just like it's kind of as soft as I can move my hands. So I'm kind of guessing out there where 5 yards is. But for me, it's just kind of that's about 5 yards.
That looks like
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is literally the spot I landed in. It's just been crazy. So now what I've been doing is, now I've got barely moved my hands as 5 yards. move my hands, and what I'm thinking is just like letting my wrist travel a little bit.
Yep.
Just a little bit. So then just a little travel is 7. A little bit more travel is 10. Again, like it's just a feel.
Yep.
And what I've been doing is I've just been literally just hitting shots, carrying 5, just going right through the motion, just right through the numbers. And then actually when I'm out on a course, and let's say I've got a 15-yard chip, I've literally just been starting going 5, 7, 10, 15.
Yep.
And then stepping right in and replicating that 15.
Yep.
And again, I've literally been laughing at some of the chip shots I've hit. And then I take that all the way through about 30 yards. And this kind of gets back to some of you that have watched me on like the Bryan Brothers videos or some other ones. I talk about this 60-yard putter grip shot. So if you're struggling with like mid wedges, I actually go to a reverse overlap putter grip, which is just how a lot of people putt. And then for me, 60 yards is kind of as far as I can take it back without breaking my hands.
Yep.
So this is kind of the opposite of that. So then I've got a shot where I start going the other direction.
So you go 60 and then you work your way
60
back.
and then I can work my way down from 60 in like 5 to 10 yard increments.
Got it.
And so then they wind up meeting in the middle, and again, I haven't hit a chip shot on like a chipping green in like 2 months, and I'm chipping the best I've ever chipped.
Tip number 3 is going to be master your short yardages. Master your short carry distances. So from anywhere from 5 to 60 yards in 2.5 to 5 yard increments.
Yep.
That's what we're trying to master here. And you're saying that you haven't hit any chips on chipping on a chipping green in a while, but you've been chipping better than you have, just because better than you ever have, just because you know where the ball's going to land.
I know how to carry it a certain distance. I mean, absolutely. So I just know, like, just barely touching it is going to carry 5, and then just growing from there.
Yeah, I feel like your style of practice, and we've worked together a decent amount, I feel like your style of practice is very much like getting away from all the like woo-woo, like you got to be able to hit all the shots and master this part of the game and feel out you're kind of getting away from feel and getting more into just like if you can do these things, you're going to be much better at golf.
You're never going to find a bigger Tiger fan than me, and I think that how much he's talked about the 9-box drill has ruined more games than it's helped. Because again, when he was great back in the day, my understanding is he basically cut the driver and drew his irons. He didn't do all of this stuff. And you'll go, I mean, obviously Zalatoris is one of my star pupils. He'll do all kinds of crazy stuff with his irons, which can be done because you can move ball position around a little bit.
Yeah.
But specifically with the driver, you can only hit that thing one way. And the quicker you understand and accept that, the better of a driver you'll be. And once you can drive it well, the game is simply not that difficult.
That's the thing that we've talked about a little bit, that I've as much as I've wanted to apply it to my game, I've been struggling with my driver lately. So maybe we need to take a look at my driver swing. But I've when we had our last session together, I think we did our 9 holes, 9 questions, and you basically just told me like you need to work on hitting your driver one way and lag putting. And I think I played some pretty good golf after that. I took second a couple events later. I shot 9 under the event after that.
But this is the thing that's so interesting, and I hadn't even really thought about this until Scotty Scheffler actually said this at the Masters when they were talking about why don't you try to draw driver on 10. He's like, well, I've got my driver fit for a fade, so I want it coming off at 2,200 RPMs. He didn't say that, but like, I want my driver personally coming off at 2,200 RPMs of spin. If I try to draw it, it's by definition going to be lower than that.
Yeah.
And so now it's a 1,700 RPM knuckleball. Like, modern equipment, it's really, you can't even work it both ways. And if you're a drawer, now if you go to fade it, it's going to be spinny.
Yep.
You're probably going to hit your 3-wood further than it anyways. I mean, again, that's the really important thing, is to realize you've got another club as an option.
Yeah. Number 1 is same shot over and over again. Number 2 is slow down, stay focused. Tip number 3 is master your short yardage carries. Mm-hmm. What's tip number 4? I'm dying.
We're definitely going to be out there on speed on the putting green.
Okay, cool. Well, let's get over here, and you guys might notice that it is significantly darker now than it was earlier when we were filming the first 3 tips. That's because we forgot to film the last tip until just now. The 4th tip, what is it?
4th tip, and it's the best way to lower your scores very quickly. Speed in your putting is by far the most important thing that you can possibly work on. If you think about any putt with any break, if you hit it a little too soft, so given the identical start lines, hit it too soft, it starts breaking sooner, hit it too hard, it starts breaking later, so your shot pattern actually becomes wider from your speed than it does from even your start line. Hard to imagine, I know. This is how a guy like Will Zalatoris, even with maybe not the best putting stroke ever, but he's got impeccable speed control. That's how he's able to be an above average putter on the PGA Tour. So when you go out to the putting green, just do speed drills. And what's really funny is, if you think about when someone putts bad, they always go and they work on their stroke. Nobody just goes and works on their speed, and it is almost always your speed. The best putters have always got the best speed by far.
So, is there any specific drill that you recommend people at home do?
Okay, so what you want to do, what we have here is 3 tees. These are about 9 inches apart, and then have a tee at 5 feet from the first one, 10 feet, and now 15 feet, and then we have the same 3 tees on the other side also with about a 9-inch window. And what you want to do is you start at this one, and I'm trying to lag it between the first and the second tee, so roughly into a 9-inch window. Just tiny taps. If I'm successful like that, I turn, and now I'm trying to lag it between the first and the third tee. So now this is a 15-foot putt into an 18-inch window. And there I was successful on both attempts, so I would ladder myself in this direction, and I would turn around and do the same thing, trying to roll it between the first and the second. If I'm successful, I go that way. And like I say, this is a drill that Maverick McNeely modified my basic decade foundation speed drill, and he's currently #1 on the PGA Tour in strokes gained putting. I don't know, seems like it works to me.
So, any questions? I know I don't have any. Scott, you do a really good job of explaining everything.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for coming on the channel.
No, thank you.
I feel like every time I play golf with you, I learn a little bit about the game. I feel like I understand what I need to do better. And I hope you guys, through watching this video, understand what you need to do better to improve your golf scores and improve your practice. You know, because you can spend a lot of, I know there's a lot of people out there, I might be one of them, who spend hours and hours and hours practicing golf, but just don't seem to get a whole lot better. Stuff like this is very helpful for that.
My standard statement is, if you finish every round of golf and you think you should have shot lower, there's only 1 of 2 things that's possible. You're not as good as you think you are, or you made mental and strategic mistakes. And for most people, it's that second one. I know that that's how I felt when I was playing professionally. I never put any effort into figuring out how to stop doing that. Decade and stuff like this is exactly how you figure out how to stop wasting those shots.
Thank you guys again for tuning into this video. Again, if you liked it and you want to see more like it, we're going to be doing a lot of game improvement stuff going forward, as well as course vlogs and all the fun stuff you're used to. So thank you again for Scott for coming on. If you want to see more stuff like that, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. 50K, help us get to 50K subscribers. We'll be eternally grateful, and we will see you guys in the next one, hopefully by the time we have 50,000 subscribers. Goodbye.